What's up, guys? Brett here. I'm back doing another 2v2 in Total War Warhammer 2. Today I'll be playing as the Chaos, led by Archaon the Ever-Chosen, my ally leading the Dark Elves with Malekith on his Black Dragon Seraphon. And our opponents went Empire and Wood Elves, and they deployed, of course, in the woods, as the Wood Elves are wont to do. Now, I was late coming into this match. My opponents had already picked, my ally had already picked, and I like to take advantage of 2v2s by bringing builds that I wouldn't normally build, or trying out different fun unit combinations. Something very experimental that I decided to do was go with a double Exalted Hero build once I saw that Malekith would be on his Black Dragon, and my hope by doing this was that they could complement him in the air, kind of act as bodyguards for either him or Archaon, and also counter any potential Wood Elf cheese that our opponents might do. A lot of times, just as I like to take advantage of 2v2s to have fun and try out different combinations, sometimes you'll come up against people who want to use it as an opportunity to do the most frustrating builds that you could possibly imagine, and the Wood Elves are definitely a great faction to do that with. A lot of their archer units can fire in 360 super long range arcs that can be really difficult to counter, and if they want, they can just kite you all day. Luckily, our opponents didn't do that, so we're going to have a fun match here. I actually have a Hell Cannon. I have a singular artillery piece. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's unbreakable. It's crewed by these Chaos Dwarves, and it has good range. Let's take a look at its stats. And it hits super hard. It has very strong AoE. Because there is only one piece, artillery piece in that unit, it kind of has to make up for it by doing great splash damage. Now at this point, my ally and I squared off towards the center of the map, and I fully expected, because this map is heavily wooded, that we would see the Wood Elves trying to conceal themselves in these trees. So once we kind of start getting vision of our opponents, we'll change our formation to face them, because we actually have a bit of a front line here, and I'm going to go through that. On the wings of my front line formation, I went with basic Chaos Marauders. They're shielded. That's basically the only reason I took them. Very cheap and shielded. Going to allow me to sponge some of that range damage, which I had a strong feeling would be an important component of this match. I also took basic Chaos Warriors, basically a step up from these guys. Also shielded. They actually have silver shields. Heavily armored. Basically good in every single matchup. To kind of anchor my center once it starts to blob, I took the Aspiring Champions. These guys are amazing looking. They have an Encourage bonus, and they do magic damage. Kind of a little bit unique about them. They have very low model count. There's only 12 of these guys, but mixed into a frontline engagement, they'll keep your frontline fighting longer, and they do a lot of splash damage. They're also backed up by Archaon, and Archaon, I only took one spell, which is the Flaming Sword of Ruin, which you'll see me pop a few times. It's an AoE damage buff on our allies. And I took Stand Your Ground, which gives me a defensive melee defense boost and an AoE as well as a leadership boost. And I took one of his items, the Crown of Command, I believe is what it's called. That might not be the name, but unfortunately in these replays I'm not able to easily click on this. So let's see, I got it this time. The Crown of Domination. So you'll see +4 leadership and immune to psychology and an AoE around him. As badass as Chaos Warriors are, they're not usually immune to psychology. So what that does is if our opponents brought a lot of terror causing units, it would lower our leadership and our front line would run. So to prevent that, we're going to keep these guys high and tight on Archaon and these Aspiring Champions. And I brought some Chaos Warhounds with poison just in case they were able to get into our back line. We could use the 6 Marauder Horseman units that I brought to tie down a single unit, slow them down with the poison, and then pick them apart with these horsemen. I brought these horsemen kind of in anticipation of a cheesier build from our opponents. Luckily that was not the case. Malekith here, he seems to have a lot of his spells. I see Blade Wind, I see Stand Your Ground. Let's see, he brought a front line of Dread Spears and Bleak Swords, very low tier infantry. And over here he has 2 Witch Elves mixed in with Shades with Great Swords. Awesome units. The Witch Elves can cause opponents' units to rampage. Basically, your opponents will lose control of those units. They'll stick around in melee, and a lot of times if it's a squishier lord or something like that, that is not what they want. These Shades have awesome armor piercing from range. If you look at their stats, their range is a lot less than the Wood Elves' range at 130, but their missile damage and armor piercing should be much, much higher. And with the Great Sword variant, if units get into melee with them, they'll pull out those Great Swords and they'll do just fine. Our ally also brought Dark Shards with shields in the back line, a fine choice if you're expecting to have to counter skirmish, and some low tier cavalry in the form of these Dark Riders. Also another good choice I feel versus a Wood Elf opponent. And I keep bringing up the Wood Elves because honestly they're the most easily abusable faction here. So any kind of cheese that happens usually happens on their end. Our opponent actually surprising me and bringing 2 units of Hawk Riders, which I was surprised and happy to see because they're a very cool unit that just doesn't get a ton of love. They're very susceptible to counter skirmishing. Their actual ranged attacks I find aren't always very effective. What they are good at is acting as pinners in a way. Their armor piercing in melee is very strong. Whenever they hit a single target melee lord, for example, a lot of these units, a lot of these models will surround that particular lord. Let's say they get onto one of our exalted heroes here, and they will all be hitting it. They'll have almost a complete surround, and they do a lot of damage in that way. The Wood Elf player took a standard Glade Lord, on horseback, as well as a Spell Singer with the Lore of Shadows. They have Pit of Shades as their primary damage dealer. Also, let's see, we're able to click on this and get it to stay up, and we're not. So that looks to me like I think that's Enfeebling Foe. It's a debuff that they are hoping to cast on us. And a good mix of archer units with Way Watchers and a Way Stalker, who is a Wood Elf hero unit with good range. They have the Prey of Anathrama, which is a Wood Elf ability that will try and net down a unit so that you can then turn around and focus fire it with a unit specifically like these Deepwood Scouts, who have the Swift Shiver Shards. That's a bit of a tongue twister, but they fire twice, and it's magic damage and very heavy armor piercing. And then just as a bit of melee chaff, they brought 3 units of Eternal Guards with shields, an extremely cost effective low tier infantry unit. Our Hell Cannon has been firing this whole time, and our Empire Knight is going to introduce himself very quickly. He brought only heavy cavalry, as well as Karl Franz, the Emperor himself, on a Barded Warhorse. So he's going to charge straight into our front line. I wasn't expecting this, but I was happy to see it. I felt like it was kind of just a bad play. The Empire player definitely didn't want to run into the spears of our Dark Elf ally, but by running into our front line, they made it so that our ally could then collapse down upon him or turn his Dark Shards to then start firing into the blob. Now I found out after the fact, through chat, that the Empire player was having a good time. He was a little drunk, and that's just fine with me. I'm not looking to get easy wins, but if someone just wants to log on to Total War Warhammer 2 and have a good time, drink a little bit, play some games with a buddy, and try some fun, crazy stuff, charge some Reichsguard straight up the pipe, for the Emperor, you know, I'm all about that. So we are gooning Karl Franz. At this point, I'm still taking this game pretty seriously. And what I'm seeing is a very vulnerable Empire Lord that I can very easily detach 2 of my Exalted Heroes and take him down with, as well as Archaon on Darger, his flaming mount here. And yeah, we're just going to take him out. He's going to hope to get into the back line and shut down our Hell Cannon, which honestly hasn't been doing that much work for us. A lot of the Wood Elf units are very loose formation, like these archers here. So we're going to go ahead and get a few good shots, I believe, very soon into these Eternal Guard. I'm seeing that that's basically the only infantry that our opponents have on the field. And we're not going to continuously chase Karl. He's nearly dead. We don't need to keep using all of our heroic resources, so to speak, to tie him up. So we're going to pull these guys away to either join the front line or assist in this back line pressure. Now, I had those 6 units of Marauder Horsemen, which as soon as I saw these Hawk Riders and all of our opponents' archer units, the Deepwood Scouts and Way Watchers, I knew were just not going to be very effective as ranged units this match. I felt like their value was going to lie in their ability to just basically slow down, muck up, and occasionally engage in melee against these units. So I'm going to be taking damage, they'll get hurt, they'll fall back, and I'll just be constantly re-engaging them as we win this front line. They're actually just a good distraction at this point. A Pit of Shades going off. Not a very good one, but it is a very sweet looking spell. It's basically like a tear in space and time. It sucks units up. So just for those of you who haven't seen that before, that's what it looks like. So we are actually charging all of our infantry now into these ranged units. They have fire at will turned on, obviously, as well as their skirmishing ability, which will allow them to kite back and shoot. All of our units are shielded, with the exception of our Exalted Heroes. But with their ability to fly, we're just going to use them to chase down this Spell Singer and hopefully get him, while our melee units just go to work against these Eternal Guard. And our ally getting a nice little wrap up here with the Witch Elves into the flank. You'll see this effect here denotes that they are enraged and cannot leave melee combat. So they're going to have to stand and fight against our vastly superior melee infantry. Opponent getting in the back line with the Dark Riders, getting into these Way Watchers. Our Exalted Hero managed to chase off and break that Spell Singer. Once he did enough damage, she decided to run, and because we were near the edge of the map, she actually just went ahead and walked off the edge. So, not needing him to stick around and take extra damage from this Glade Lord or this Waystalker, I'm going to bring him back to the fight. Our allies Malekith getting off a Wind Blast-esque spell down the line here. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does have a slowing effect, and it's a very cheap spell for Malekith to cast. Yeah, I really wish I was able to click on these guys so I could... Yeah, there we go. I may have to actually click on the model to get that to work. I want to give you guys accurate names for some of these abilities. And Chillwind. Okay, so that was a Chillwind. At this point, it's basically, you know, all over but the crying. Our opponents were having a lot of fun with the cavalry charge, and you know, as I said, that's fine with me. I like to do the same thing sometimes. Go all cavalry for the Empire and just charge right in. So here we're just cleaning up. Soon our opponent will start to suffer army losses. You'll see all these units are wavering and breaking. I appreciate our Wood Elf opponent not going heavy on the cheese and actually bringing a very diverse mix of hero units that we could get to see in action that we maybe don't normally get to see. And along that same line, I mean, that's basically why I bought Archaon. Had I been looking to just be very competitive, I probably would have brought someone like Kolek or even Sigvald as a regenning, very hard to hit hero that can take a lot of artillery and ranged fire from the Empire and Wood Elf factions. So everyone in this match was just trying to have fun. and that's what it's all about. So thank you guys for watching. I will be bringing you more of these in the future. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button, and feel free to leave any comments for suggestions for different matchups you want to see, and I can try and get those to you. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. And you know what? The last video, I don't believe I showed you guys the score screen at the end to kind of see which units performed and which units didn't. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. Yeah, I'm noticing right off the bat our Marauder Horsemen didn't do nearly anything except sponge damage. Our front line did fine. Everything just did kind of mediocre. We took a lot of the hits so that our Dark Elf ally, who basically took, you'll see here, almost no damage on any of their core units, they were able just to kind of come in from the flank and clean up. Wood Elf player, very well rounded. They actually had a unit of Wild Riders, 2 units, that did a lot of work. They probably are what shut down my horsemen very early on. They're great against them. Super fast moving unit that does very high damage, but you got to be a little careful with them. They are squishy. They don't have much armor. And let's see. And our opponent got some respectable kills on their regiments of renown here, the Royal Outdoor Griffites. They do cause terror. They're an exceptional unit. But they brought a few range units which kind of got dunked very early on. They were the Empire units you could see all the way to the east of the field, hidden kind of by themselves in those tree lines, and they just got taken out right at the start. But had they worked a little bit more in tandem, using the Empire's cavalry to flank us in the beginning, and kind of marching up the center with the Wood Elf army, using their front line of Eternal Guard just to provide that buffer for their ranged units, we probably would have had a much more competitive, serious game on our hands, and the whole match would have looked completely different. So, with all that being said, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this match. Have a nice day.